Hi there, welcome everyone. Welcome to my channel. We had a little break, but we are back now. This video today is one of the first in the series where we're going to show you our back garden and where our produce is growing, and then we're going to be preserving it. So I'm going to be showing all our favorite recipes, jams, jellies, chutneys, soups, all sorts of things that you can do with your fresh produce. And today we're going to start with the rhubarb. So it is beginning of May, and it's one of the first things that's ready in the garden. And the great thing on the Dukan diet is rhubarb is free. Even on your protein days, you're allowed a small amount of rhubarb, and your veggie days, it's unlimited. So it's a wonderful vegetable. So let's have a look here. Our rhubarb that we've got growing here today, massive big leaves. And this is one of our plants. We've got another 3 plants as well, and they're actually starting to flower here. So it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm just going to pick a couple of stalks to show you what it looks like. Okay guys, so let's bend down here. We'll see what we've got. I'll cut them quite close to the plant. We don't use the leaves, we only use the stalks. So here we go. That's another one over here. It's slightly pink at the base, but this variety is very green. It's not what they call forced rhubarb. This is all natural. It's not done in greenhouses or anything like that. Here we go. Lovely tender stems. Here we go. So we'll be going back into the kitchen, and I'm going to show you how to make a couple of recipes with the rhubarb. Okay, hi everyone, we're back in the kitchen. So we've picked the rhubarb, you've seen our garden and where it's growing. So 2 recipes for you today. The first one, I'm going to show you how to make rhubarb and ginger jam. And the second recipe, I'm going to show you how to make a rhubarb compote that you can use, either top your yogurts with it, or you can even turn it into ice cream. So we'll do another video in the near future to show you how to do anglaise, so you can do a lovely rhubarb ice cream. So first let's have a look at the ingredients for the jam. So basically over here I've got the rhubarb. I've topped and tailed it. We've taken the leaves off and washed it. I've got 250 grams of rhubarb. Then in the bowl here I've got 230 grams of sweetener. I'm using erythritol, so it looks a lot like caster sugar. It's granulated but quite fine. You can use any sweetener you like, but I find for jam this one works really well. And the third ingredient here is a bit of fresh stem ginger that I've chopped up, and this is about 10 grams. Now the other thing you're going to be needing is just here is a little piece of muslin and a string, so you can tie up your stem ginger. So let's start by cutting up our rhubarb. So basically I'm looking at about 1 inch wide, the pieces, and you just simply slice them up. You don't need to peel them because they are super fresh. They're not stringy old rhubarb. So if it was old rhubarb, you would see there is a very thin skin on it, and you can actually just pull it off by hand. But on the fresh rhubarb, you've got hardly any of it. So I'm going to just put this little bit of rhubarb in the bowl here. Here we go. Chop the rest up here. And what we're going to do, we're just going to mix it with the sugar, the sweetener, and leave it for a few hours. There we go. So what I'll do, I'll take a little bit of sugar. Or sweetener. If you're on Dukan, always use sweetener, not sugar. A little bit more rhubarb. So we're just making layers. And what the sweetener or the sugar does in this case is going to draw the moisture out of the rhubarb, because we're not adding any water to this. Now it seems like a lot of sugar. It depends on how sweet your rhubarb is, but you need that to make the jam. So I'm going to just add the rest of the sugar in there. So you'll see all the pieces are coated with the sweetener. So we're going to just leave this now for a couple of hours, and then we'll come back to the jam. Hi everyone, we are back now. So I'm going to show you the second recipe with the rhubarb. This is a really easy recipe. So we're doing this now while we're waiting for our rhubarb to draw its moisture. So over here I've got a saucepan, and then over here I've got some rhubarb. You don't have to measure it out. This over here is about 250 grams of rhubarb. I've just washed it, diced it, and it's just going into your saucepan. And then the amount of liquid, it's just ordinary water, is a small amount. So what you're basically wanting is the rhubarb to be half covered by the liquid. And then we're going to put that on the cooker now. So I'll switch this on. And we're going to bring this to the boil. And once it's boiling, we're just going to let it simmer a little bit till it's nice and soft. And then I'll show you what we're going to do. Alright guys, so this was brought up to the boil, and it's now been simmering for just over 5 minutes. Now you'll see the chunks is breaking up, and this is now the good time to stop it. What you can do is with a spoon just gently squash it, but you don't have to. It's just to see if they are cooked. Yeah, they are all nice and soft now. So I'm going to switch that off now. Otherwise all the liquid will evaporate. And the idea is here to have a little bit of compote and to have a little bit of juice. So I'll take you over to the counter now. So on here I've got a little sieve and a bowl. So I just literally pour the rhubarb in there. If you wanted to do all of it in a slightly bigger bowl. But this is what we're basically going to do. We're going to wait for that juice to all drain through. And then what I'm going to do is show you how to sweeten the rhubarb and the juice. Okay guys, so you'll see here what's left in the sieve here is a nice puree consistency. Some people call it compote. So I'll just put that over here. So we've now just separated the solid bits from the juice. And you'll see it's actually quite a good amount. So cloudy rhubarb juice and compote. So now the quantities for your sweetener, I'm using this liquid sweetener. So I didn't add it while I was cooking it, I added afterwards. So when you make your juice, if you've got, for every liter of juice, I add 6¼ milliliter of liquid sweetener to the juice. I'll put that in the description of the recipe as well. And then for the cooked rhubarb, for every cup of cooked rhubarb, I add a ½ teaspoon of liquid sweetener. So you can just measure out how much rhubarb you've got and add your sweetener. So this is actually really lovely on top of your yogurt if you've got plain yogurt. And this you can now blend with this stick blender, and you can use that in your ice cream to flavor your ice cream with. And you can make all sorts of things. You can make it into a mousse and other desserts if you like. You can also add this through jelly when you make your flavored jelly, and it's really lovely. Okay guys, so with the rhubarb juice and the rhubarb puree, you can put that once it's cooled off into the fridge, and you can keep it for at least 3 days. or you can freeze it. I've done that successfully in the past, and it's actually really nice. So taste your rhubarb juice. If you like it just the way it is, perfect. If you want to dilute it slightly, you can dilute it. But I hope you're going to enjoy it as much as I do. So in a few minutes, we'll be back to show you how to cook that rhubarb and ginger jam. Alright guys, the rhubarb's now been sitting here for a few hours, and you can actually get that lovely smell of the rhubarb, and you'll see some liquid in the bottom of the bowl, but you'll see some of the sugar is not completely dissolved. So we're going to transfer this now into a saucepan. So you'll see there at the bottom a little bit of sugar. That's fine. We've been a bit impatient, so if you wait overnight, you'll see that it's almost dissolved in the morning. Here we go. And then what we've done as well, we've tied up our ginger in the muslin, and we're going to put that in there as well. You can actually leave that out until the sugar is dissolved. So we'll put that on the stove then. So I'm going to switch it on. So you're wanting medium to low heat, not too hot. Find yourself a wooden spoon. So I'm going to stir this now until all the sugar has dissolved. And then I'll put the ginger in, and then we will simmer it for about 10 to 15 minutes. So in a small quantity of jam, it's probably around 10 minutes. And the more rhubarb you have, the longer it will take. So we'll come back to this. Alright guys, so the jam has now been cooking for about 10 minutes. I'll show you here. When you pull the spoon through the jam, you can see there's still a little bit of liquid. So I would take this maybe another 2 or 3 minutes. So it all depends on your kind of rhubarb and how fast you've been simmering your jam. So in the meantime, I boiled the kettle. So basically this amount of jam is just a small jar. This one is 230 milliliters. So we'll see if this is going to be a good size for this. I'm putting this just in a bowl. As it's just one jar, I'm not making a big dramatic thing out of the sterilizing. I'm pouring boiling hot water from the kettle over the jar, over the lid, and leave that for a few minutes while the jam is cooking. There we go. Just make sure your jar is well submerged and your lid as well. We'll leave that for like 5 minutes. Okay. Alright guys, that's been another few minutes, so let's just empty the jar here. So I just normally do that. Let's see here, be careful to burn yourself. And then what I do with the lid, I dry the lid with paper on the inside so there's no moisture. There's different ways, everyone has got their own way of doing jam. I just keep it simple. Now I've taken that ginger out, and you will see when you now scrape it together, there's hardly any liquid, and it's very nice and glossy. I'm going to pour that straight into the hot jar. Oops, if you do make a little mess, we're just going to wipe it up. So you're trying to get the jar as full as possible. 1 or 2 millimeters from the top is okay, not much more. But I normally keep my jar in the fridge anyway, so just going to wipe that. Make sure it's totally clean. And then what I do, level it out a bit. So there's a little bit of a gap here. Ideally you want the gap to be slightly less. Then I'm going to put the lid on while it's hot. turn it. There we go. And I turn it over just to create a seal. So if the jar was a slightly fuller, there wouldn't be all this gap. But by doing this, you'll see the jar will create a seal, and that would be how it's going to stay fresh. Okay guys, so this one is just cooling off here. I would leave that 24 hours just sitting on its lid like that, but this one was not quite to the top, so I'll keep this one in the fridge. Now the one over here is one I've made a while ago. I'll show you. This one's got a much smaller gap at the top, and it's absolutely fine. I didn't put any wax paper or anything like that. This one was just upside down like the other one, and I've kept them like that in the cellar for up to a year. It's totally fine. So I'll show you the consistency here. It's nice and thick. It's not watery. It's not runny at all. And we're going to put a bit on our toast here. So this is my everyday Dukan bread with some seeds. I don't bother putting anything underneath it, but if you really want to, put a bit of cream cheese under it or a bit of quark. And I love this for breakfast. Some mornings I have a bit of jam. I even have it on my muffins. Here we go. So here's your rhubarb and ginger jam with your Dukan toast. Then next to it here is our rhubarb compote or puree. So this is perfect if you want to use that on top of your plain yogurt. It's already sweetened, and you can also use this to make some ice cream. And then over here, the final part of our video is our rhubarb juice. I've diluted it slightly, and you will see it's cloudy, similar to cloudy apple juice, and it's actually very refreshing. Let's have a taste. That's lovely. That's lovely. Well, I hope you enjoyed our video, and if you do like it, please subscribe, share the video, tell your friends about it, and leave us a comment to tell us what you think about it. So we'll be back in a while, and we'll do some other recipes with some more seasonal veg. Have a lovely day. Bye.